Minion soldier throwing shade. Was I throwing shade at Subliminal? I saw that comment. I went, oh my God, no. But that was the video, very astute. That was the video that I was referencing. That was a video that was sent to me, and I watched it and I was just like, yep, I largely agree with everything that he said. My emotional connection to the cut list puts it a little bit higher in that list. But realistically, you have to look at what he's talking about in that video. He's compartmentalizing Star Citizen in 3.14, and he's talking about best combat ships in 3.14, or dogfighting. And his list is, correct. He's right. Absolutely right. I agree 100% with his list. Some of the ships that I own are, of course, on the top of that list. And some of them that I love are not. And that breaks my heart. But he is correct. That there is nothing wrong in that video. He's right. What I'm presenting, what I'm saying to you is that if you're someone who's looking to buy a ship in Star Citizen, I'm not talking about, in-game, you're like me or you're like any other number of people, and you do have that industrial side operation, so you can afford some interesting things in Star Citizen with Alpha UEC. You can just buy whatever you want to buy. It doesn't matter, and the money doesn't matter right now, so you can just do whatever you want to do and experiment with everything that you want to experiment with. But for the player out there who is swinging the credit card, and maybe they don't have a lot to swing with, and that's fine, that's okay, right? Be very, very careful basing your purchases off of a video that is basically a snapshot of a moment in time, because as you know, when you play MMOs, things change. And things can sometimes take some bizarre bounces. Now, you can look at any ship in 3.14 and then make a prediction for 3.15 and be reasonably correct. 3.16, well, things get a little bit sketchier, right? We are kind of exploring that widening gulf, that is the possible error in our thinking. As we go further in time, our likelihood of being, off increases, exponentially. Our margin for error gets a lot bigger over time. And so if you're buying for the long term, that's why I always say, pick solid foundational ships that open a lot of doors. And I agree with the info runners when they tell people flat out, don't buy fighters. Don't. Buy a fighter in the game. Buy the ship that's going to buy the fighters for you out of game. This is something that I've said on the Info Runners podcast. I believe this is like a core philosophy of the Info Runners. Execute an algorithm, and whoever else happens to be on that week, they will often talk about this. And it is a correct philosophy. Absolutely. Build, you can build whatever you want to build in Star Citizen, but what you should think about this time is the time to build your foundation, so that once you get into Star Citizen, you're not just opening doors, you're kicking out open as many doors as possible. So yeah, that would be my point of view on that. But as for him producing that video in 3.14, you hear your best combat ships, 100%. Yeah. It's just, I would say that I would not base my decisions based off of a singular patch. But there are other great videos out there. And there are sometimes those of you who have tracked me down, send me stuff. And I watch videos, but I just don't want to become that guy who's just all right, today we react to this. Today, I never want to do that. But there, I am gonna I am gonna dip my toe into it just a little bit. Just for fun, just to kind of illustrate. Like, there are times when I'm watching people Star Citizen videos and I'm like, this is a great video, and I'm not entirely sure that this guy understands what he just did or what he just said. There's an excellent example of this. And it's a very recent video too, by a guy named Tiejax, Tiejax. He's talking about dogfighting in 3.14, and he talks about his opener. He says, I like to open up with a couple of missiles, just to whatever that guy's plan is, I want to throw it off. You know, it's something along those lines, he says in this video. I'll hopefully remember to link it in the description below. But I'm not sure if he fully realizes that what he's doing at the moment, or what he's illustrating, or maybe he's just kind of, through his own experimentation, he's kind of gotten to this place organically, not being aware of the fact that there's actually like a major philosophy attached to that, or a way of thinking, and a big acronym, which is the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Right? The OODA loop. Those of you who know about John Boyd and the OODA loop, or Colonel John Boyd, I'm sorry, and the OODA loop, watch this video. Because he's presenting the OODA loop. He's saying, like, I'm going to break your decision-making process and keep resetting it while I do my thing in a dogfight. And that's how I like to open dogfights. And I was watching it and I was just like, this guy's talking about the OODA loop. But I don't know if he knows that he's talking about the OODA loop. It's like, but the rest of the video, 100% solid. But it was that moment when it just kind of yanked me back in my chair a little bit. And I was like, oh, look at you with the OODA loop. I love it. That's awesome. And I became very curious. Is like, did he get there on his own, or, maybe did he kind of like know about it on some level? Who knows? But it's a very good, it's a solid video, 100%. And, yeah, I found that moment to be just kind of like, wow, that was cool. That was interesting. I wonder how we got there. But all that stuff, kind of set aside now. We're done with our Minion Soldier Reacts video to other YouTubers. I had been experimenting with a number of other MMOs on the side, right? And just checking things out, and even going back to some old classics, and just seeing what they were like now, and just kind of messing around. A lot of them have gone free to play, and one game in particular, which, because it's Star Wars, I have a particular affinity for, and I had to play for a little while, right? And it was fun to take a walk down memory lane. I mean, one of the things that you can say about the Old Republic is that the single player campaigns are amazing. They're absolutely amazing from a single player, storytelling perspective. They're great stories with funny moments, sad moments, moments that make you angry. It's so well done. Like, the original product, even in its modernized state, is fantastic. And I love to come back and dabble just a little bit and try out different things. Here I am trying to kind of create a unique combination of bounty hunter / Sith warrior, or at least in this version, it's a bounty hunter that uses a vibro sword, or whatever you want to call it, instead of a gun, and using the Sith warrior as the platform for that. And it seems like they're going to be doing some interesting stuff, blurring the lines in the future between the classes. I want to see some more on that to know exactly what they're talking about, but it does seem kind of interesting where they're going. But if you were to look at like MMOs that are coming up, even something like Ashes of Creation, which I think just got finished with its first alpha. I'm a backer on that project, but I wasn't I don't think I'm enabled to go into that alpha. It's a later one, like Alpha 2 or something like that, I get to go into. But when you look at games like that, even games that are, kind of coming up, these still are MMOs based off of, the current generation of MMOs, right? They're the old school of doing things. They're a refinement on the old school. They're not based off of something new or entirely different. So we can kind of look at these games and we say, oh yeah, it's familiar. They've worked out a lot of the bugs, and even when you look at an older game like this, you can see the improvements that they've made over the years, or in some cases the downgrades, especially if you're talking about WoW. We can kind of look at these things and, we can see how this has become refined over the years. But at the very beginning, when these games were first coming out, things were raw, things were rough, things had a lot of problems. Certainly, when Classic came out, it really did bring back, a lot of those old memories, from years and years ago. And we were like, oh man, remember this? Remember that? What a great time. But at the same time, it also brought back the problems with the genre back then, and the way that information was handled, the way that players were handled. And it kind of served as a little bit of a reminder that things were less than perfect back then, and you can't just look at the past with rose-tinted glasses. Now, we can certainly talk about the deserts of Tatooine. And we can go like, oh man, look at that. That's a great view. Look at how amazing that is, This game really has held up over the years. They did a great job, and they've made certain improvements along the way that make this game good. And wow. But this is that older generation, right? And they've had a lot of time to refine it. The newer generation, of which, frankly, there aren't all that many games out there, has really yet to kind of make its mark. Now, if you think about the deserts of Tatooine, or the desert in 1,000 Needles in classic WoW, and you compare that to just Star Citizen's beginnings at building a desert world, think of the possibilities. But also, remember, look at Star Citizen in the same context as a classic World of Warcraft, before they had a lot of stuff figured out, and all the problems that they had at the launch of that game. A lot of people might, remember, it was so fun going to Nax with my friends and going to this and that and the other thing. But no one's going to really remember right off the top of their head that, oh yeah, remember that bug that used to leave you stuck on a flight point for half an hour to an hour? Do you remember the intense amount of lag because they didn't realize what a success the game was going to be like, and they just didn't have enough servers? All the limitations, all the things, all the bad things that they eventually did away with, all the bad game mechanics that nowadays are just automatically written off, they still hadn't figured that out yet. And so when people kind of come to me and they say, how can you, how you're buying into Chris Roberts's, scam, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. And it's just like, no, I understand this from the context of the past. I'm old enough as a gamer to understand that this situation that we're in, to a certain degree, is unique, but at the same time, it's familiar territory. Because as an MMO finds its footing, some things that, the game designers believed in fervently, that they were just absolutely I will die on this hill, they eventually had to, go, no, actually, you're right, that doesn't work. I mean, you want to look at the current situation at Blizzard. That's a perfect example of what happens when you don't listen to your fans, and when you just sit there and you dig your heels in and you say, no, I've got statistics and I've got MAUs. I know all about these things, and your guys are wrong. And it's just no, you're some people think that I gave up on that game because of, the whole situation with the mistreatment of employees at Blizzard. And the truth of it is, the people who know me directly know exactly why it happened. It was just because I had just gotten tired of the systems in the game and the way that the game was constructed. It just happened to be that I had kind of quit a week before all that stuff had come out. And so I was just like looking at it and going like, well, yeah, looks like it's about time. But it was the way that the game is designed that had put me off more than anything. But to get back on track, most of these current generation MMOs and even the ones that are coming up, what you may have realized, and why I love this footage so much, is that the amount of distance that I have crossed while just talking to you in the background is far greater than the size of just about any zone in any of the classic MMOs that you like to play. Right? Like, look out at this vista. And that's probably bigger than the entire northern half of Kalimdor in World of Warcraft. It's staggering. And this is just this is not even a drop in the bucket. This is a drop in the ocean when you consider the entirety of Daymar, right? And what can exist there. Now, we often complain about the fact that, one of the biggest problems that Star Citizen has is server reliability, right? Server reliability is kind of an issue, and we often talk about, if they brought it back down, the servers would run a lot better. But think about it. If we brought the entire game down to Daymar, how good would the game run then if we could bring it all the way back down to Daymar? And Daymar itself is just one moon in this solar system. But think about Daymar in the context of one of the classic MMOs. Think of the worlds that you could build with just Daymar as your starting point. And it doesn't have to all be desert. You could have oceans, you could have jungles, and it would go on for miles and miles and miles. You could have a world where players develop their own communities. I'll be the lumberjack, I'll be the blacksmith, I'll be the hunter, I'll be the skinner and the clothier and whatnot. And think about all the possibilities that open up in like a survival game or an MMO when you have a world that is this big. And this works. Because we know that if you take Star Citizen, you were to compress it all down to just Daymar, it would probably run amazingly well. And imagine you could do that. You could imagine in a way that where you're taking away the flight mechanics and all of this, and you're just even using the old framework of like a World of Warcraft or the Old Republic type game mechanics to, slice with your sword, fire your bow, shoot your spell, whatnot. And just think about it being built off of a world like this. And this is, for CIG, just building a single world like this is child's play. I would be very interested to know how quickly CIG could slap together a planet if you were to go in there and say, can you make me a mixed environment world? Some desert, some jungle, some, kind of boreal forests, some mountains. How quickly and some oceans. How quickly could you kick that together? It probably wouldn't take them all that long to make just one world, right? Based off of all the experience that they have. And that one world is the one thing that any of the current MMOs need to completely, just destroy their competition. I mean, it would be crazy. It would be like talking about the difference between, playing video games on a Game Boy and playing video games on a PC. It would be jaw-dropping, and it would totally change the genre overnight. And that's the funny thing, is that it already happened and no one has noticed yet. No one has picked up on it. I'm a big believer in a lot of the things that Steven Sharif has said about the MMO industry, and that's why I'm a backer on Ashes of Creation. But in the back of my mind, I still look at Ashes of Creation. I say that's the old generation. Steven Sharif is trading horses and not really noticing the fact that he just got passed by a car. Yeah, it's a rickety, bizarre-looking thing that makes a lot of noise, and people might look at it and say, "Oh, there's nothing in them, horseless carriages." But that car that passed him on the road, that's going to change the world. And here it is. And people still haven't figured it out yet in the game industry. And when I see new and up and coming MMOs, and I'm just like, do you guys understand that that is dead? That is over? I always thought that, you know, in a bizarre way, that was kind of like going to end up being one of the biggest revenue streams for CIG. Is that eventually people are going to pick up on this and they're just going to go to Chris Roberts and be like, how do you do that? We'd like to license that. We need that for our next game world. I mean, Thousand Needles was great back in the day, but imagine it with this technology. That would be a game worth looking forward to. Anyways, yeah, that's why I'm still here. And that's why, you know, my Star Citizen videos are more having fun with disappointment than being angry about it. You know, I have historical context. Anyways, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.